So, welcome everyone to this session this afternoon where it's a very exciting part where we announce this year's Soil Farmer of the Year winners and finalists. So the competition really aims to promote those farmers who are doing absolutely fantastic things around sustainable soils management. And for those of you that don't know, the competition opens each year on World Soils Day, which for those of you that haven't already got it ringed in your calendar is the 5th of December. We then have the application window that's open. It's applications through an online system, which asks a lot of questions about your farming system, what you're doing in terms of managing the soil, physical, chemical, and biological health, and then another session about why you think you should be Soil Farmer of the Year, really to start to understand the motivations and the journey that our farmer applicants have really been on. So that application window is then open for 3 months. Once that then closes, we then anonymise all of the entries, and they all go off to a panel of judges. And those panel of judges include last year's winners. We have soil scientists, we have people from our partner organisations, so from Farm Carbon Toolkit and from Innovation for Agriculture. And then also our sponsors, so from Hutchinson's and from Cotswold Seeds. And that really allows us to get a really good depth and breadth of knowledge that allows us to come up with our shortlist. And then what happens when we have our shortlist is we then have the in-person judging visits where we have a bit of a tour and we go around and we meet the farmers. We dig a little bit deeper, both metaphorically and physically, into what's happening on their farms and really start to understand what's happening. And so that's what we've been doing since December last year. And this competition, we're in our 7th year of the competition now, and it's absolutely fantastic to see how it grows and how we get a real diversity of farmers that we're dealing with as this competition grows and its recognition arrives. So this year, we were really excited that we had 35 entries that came in during that application window. And those varied completely across different enterprises, different types of farming, different scales of farming, and also, much to our judges' amusement, also in terms of geographically. So we always end up doing a little bit of a road trip in terms of the judging process, and we always think there's a little bit of a thing in terms of how far apart can all of these farms be in terms of going around and looking at them. And I'll let Ed talk a little bit more about the judging process in a minute. So of those 35 entries that we had, we then shortlisted 7 through that shortlisting process in terms of that anonymous. And we now, as I say, are coming to the point where from that 7, we will now be announcing our top 3. And what happens with our top 3, not only do they get the amazing accolade of being Soil Farmer of the Year 2022, but there's also a really good opportunity for you guys or anybody that's interested following the discussions that we'll have today to come along and learn more about their farming system through a farm walk. And those farm walks, we will get those dates finalised over the next week or so, and they will all be advertised on our website. So I do urge you, and also on our partner website, so do have a look at those dates and do come along, because they are always absolutely fantastic learning events. So at this point, I'd just like to introduce some of the partners that work with us in this competition. So obviously, at Farm Carbon Toolkit, we have myself, but Emma, my colleague Emma, who's really been spearheading it this year in terms of running all of the organisation and doing an absolutely fantastic job. So thank you very much, Emma. But we're really, really lucky to work with a fantastic range of partner organisations. We work with Innovation from Agriculture, who again have supported us all the way through this competition, and it's really, really great to work with you. And we are also incredibly grateful to our 2 sponsors of the competition, Cotswold Seeds, who again, we're super excited to be working with you guys, and Hutchinson's, again, who provide a lot of really good support. So thank you all very much for being involved in the competition and hopefully, getting to this exciting bit now. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and I'm just going to hand over to Ed, who's going to talk a little bit more about the judging process and some of the good things that they found on farm, and then we will announce the results.
Thank you, Becky. Hi, everyone. So, when Becky first emailed me giving us the opportunity to be involved in sponsoring this competition, I was very quick to talk to my superiors and get them to loosen the purse strings a bit and cough up and support it, because working in this arena, it's so obvious how important it is that farmers beginning to transition, thinking of transitioning towards more regenerative practices and looking after their soil, learning from other farmers is so critical. And I could see this as a really good way of those who are doing great things on farm, getting that out there and sharing experiences and ideas with others. And obviously the farm walks play a critical part of that. So absolutely chuffed to bits to be involved personally and as a company. So the judging process really begins with the entries coming through, and you get a bit of paper, which is anonymous, with a load of stuff that someone's doing. You've got no idea of the context, really where they are, what they're doing to a degree. You've just got this bit of paper, and you kind of have to. If you feel like sometimes you might miss a really good person through this process, but I think it's pretty good. So they list all the things they're doing, and then we try and decipher who we think is then worth travelling up and down the length of the country to go and see them in person. And whilst you approach the judging process with a bit of trepidation, knowing how many miles and hours in the car are ahead of you, as Debbie well knows, it's always worth it when you turn up on farm, because the people that have entered and you're going to see are so enthusiastic about what they do. They're all doing fantastic things. And whilst I'm lucky enough to work with farmers doing this sort of thing every day, and this is the second year I've been involved in the competition, you still turn up on farm and are amazed to some degree by what people are doing. So yeah, it's always worth the miles and the time in the car. And then obviously after that we have the horrendous decision to make between us of who comes out on top, whereas they're all deserved winners, really.
I think the decision gets harder every year, doesn't it, in terms of actually, because I think the really interesting thing is obviously soil connects us all, isn't it? But we're all doing things in fundamentally different ways, and so comparing and contrasting and all of that is so difficult, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, everybody really kind of has the same goal, you tend to find, with where they want to be and the sorts of ambitions they have, but it's amazing the number of different ways there are to get there, and yeah. It's really encouraging to see. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant. Well, I'm going to hand over to Paul now. So we're almost out of suspense in terms of so that Paul can present our awards for us this year, and we can find out what's happening. So I'm going to hand a piece of paper to Paul. So at the moment, obviously, we announced our shortlisted farmers, and then we've announced our top 3, but we don't know who's come in what order and all that sort of thing. So I'll pass over to Paul to tell us a little bit about Cotswolds, and we're super thankful for both Hutchinson's and Cotswolds' involvement, and also then just to announce the shortlists and then the runner-up and the winners.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. It's fantastic to be involved with these sorts of competitions, and they're no mean feat. I know how much work goes into driving around the country and judging all these different locations, and every journey is different, I think, into the regenerative farming journey. It's really fantastic that we've got so many finalists that are just doing so much brilliant work, and I think they all deserve congratulations for getting so far and really being the spearhead of the Regen Ag movement, because without these guys, the movement wouldn't be moving, and so I think we just need to keep up that momentum. It's been a difficult time recently, and it's just so good that soil health is still at the top of the agenda. We need to keep it that way. We need to keep pushing forward, and I think events like this are just such an important part of that. It's a privilege to be involved, and great to be given the opportunity to sponsor the event. So thank you very much for that, and well done to the Carbon Toolkit team, because it's just such hard work and great work that they do. And now with Liz at the helm, I'm sure it'll go even more from strength to strength. So thank you for that. But so without further ado, we're going to go on and announce the winners of the competition. Would you like me to announce the shortlisted?
Shortlist first, please.
Okay, no problem. So shortlisted farmers are Tim Williams.
And can they come and get their certificates and have a very big round of applause, please?
Tim
Come
Williams.
On, Tim. Well done. You can come and stand here.
Next on the list, we've got Paul Temple.
Paul Temple's not here, but we'll give him a clap anyway.
He's busy. He's forgiven. Stuart Johnson.
Well done. Well done.
And James Lee.
Oh, well done, James.
Another busy boy. Again, forgiven. Okay, so moving on to the winners. So obviously we've got 3 to announce. We've got the runner-up this year, Andrew Rees.
Well done.
Now we have 2 winners. We have a mixed farm winner, Billy Lewis. And the Arable Farm winner this year, 2022, is David Miller.
Good stuff. So I think, we give everybody a clap, and then we're going to get a chance to talk to our top three and hear a little bit more about their systems. So yes, thank you ever so much to our judges. If we can now replace our judges with our winners. Thank you ever so much. Grab a microphone. Didn't know you were going to be a pop star today, did you? There's one down there. Perfect. So I think now we're gonna give a little bit of time to each of our winners to introduce themselves and their their farms, just to whet your appetite for the farm walks, which obviously we hope you're all going to come along and learn a little bit more about what they're doing in detail. So if we can just have sort of 5-10 minutes from each of you in terms of what you're doing, I'll ask you some questions and then we'll open up the floor. So if you've got anything that you'd like to know more information about, keep that question stored and we'll come to you in a minute. Andrew, do you want to start us off?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We farm as a family in Pembrokeshire and West Wales, predominantly dairy, milking just over 300 British region cows, spring calving, grass-based system. I suppose over the last few years, we've transitioned from a sort of probably a high-end use system, basically trying to lower our chemical nitrogen inputs by moving to more a foliar nitrogen approach and product suspension through the use of a toe and fit machine. Alongside that, we've been introducing herbal lays, thinking about the way we graze, introducing more sort of holistic plan graze, no longer rest periods with predominantly young stock, and seeing benefits there. In a nutshell, that's what we're doing.
That's fab. Thank you. Brilliant. David, do you want to tell us about your farm and what you've been up to?
Yes, thank you very much, Becky. We are a farming company in Hampshire, Witchy Farming. We are owned by the farmers that we farm for, and we started down the regen route probably about 12, 13 years ago, where we started looking at cover crops. We've then since, in the last 7 years, we've been using no-till, and that's now led on to reducing a lot of inputs in what we're doing as well. So the journey has been a bit rocky, but we certainly feel like we're on top of the job now. So we've reduced our inputs, we've reduced our labour supply. We're farming 700 hectares with just myself as a full-time employee. We bring in labour to do specific jobs. We've reduced diesel down to 50 litres a hectare. We've reduced fertiliser by 25%. So we're now we're doing the easy bits first, reducing the fertiliser, the inputs. The difficult one is going to be the herbicides. That's really what we're going to struggle with. But learning a lot around here today as well. So it's something that we'll continue to strive to do.
What crops are you growing, David?
We're all sort of broadacre stuff. So we're growing oilseed rape, winter barley, winter wheat. We grow an awful lot of spelt wheat, which we direct sell and have our own flour. We grow spring wheat, spring barley, and spring beans, as well as winter beans. But everything, a third of the farm is spring cropped, so a third of the farm has a cover crop every year. So that's helping to build our fertility up. And we've not used any phosphate or potash for the past 8 years, and we're still seeing the levels of these going up. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Billy, tell us about your farm and what you're up to.
So we're a 350-acre mixed farm in Herefordshire. Very much a family affair. I farm alongside my parents. We sort of started this regen journey like 3 or 4 years ago, and every year it's just ramped up more and more. And the neighbours think we're losing our mind more and more every year. But so we're sort of, half the farm is permanent pasture. Zero input, doesn't get any fertiliser. Doesn't really get any machinery over it. And then half the farm is in a arable sort of temporary grass rotation. We've got 40 pedigree Hereford cattle plus the followers and 300 breeding ewes. We grow cereals, try and concentrate on growing a good first wheat, and then normally move to sort of potentially a second wheat or oats. Arable rotation doesn't normally last sort of longer than 3 years before it goes back into grass. So, we're keeping it moving. We like direct drilling now, catch cropping, sort of straight after combining. We're going in with catch crops before the next cereal, and then overwinter cover cropping when applicable. We produce about 500 tonnes of FYM each year. All of that gets composted now. It's a much better product than just muck. And all of our livestock are mob grazed throughout the farm. All of the fields on the farm see the hooves of an animal every 3 years, really. Good old-fashioned mixed farming, really. But yeah.
Well, it seems to be working, so that's great. So I suppose Andrew, what's your main soil type on the farm?
It's quite a mix. It's sort of a silty clay loam would be our sort of predominant. We range over different subsoils. We'd be over clay on part of the farm and over a more sort of free drain sandstone in other parts. And we do touch a sort of a red sandstone on a fraction of the farm as well. Then, so we've got a fair mix. So it does give us versatility through changing weather patterns in terms of wet or dry. We've got options.
And in terms of the stuff that you've started to implement on the farm, what changes are you seeing in terms of how the farm's performing?
Well, on the nitrogen side, we've probably dropped, over 3 years, we dropped from 220 kilos of N a hectare down to just over 80. We've maintained, we actually produce more milk, but on a back calculation of tonnes grown, we were pretty static. So I saw that as a positive. In terms of soils, where we've put herbal lays in, improved sort of structure. Where we've done tissue testing, we've got quite a few paddocks we've sort of split between ryegrass, white clover and herbal lays, and then we've herbage tested each side, and sort of the mineral balance of the herbal lay side is phenomenal in comparison to just your straight ryegrass side. So if we can start rolling that, plans to roll that out across more of the farm now. Livestock definitely prefer the diversity. I was telling the judges the story when we were going around with some heifers break out one night, and I found them in a herbal lay. So put them back, tied the gate. I knew I tied the gate myself, so I knew it was secure. I went back the next morning, they chewed the string, and I closed the gate in the herbal lay, but they were all stood at the gate, wanting to go back into it. So you listen to your animals, and they were speaking loudly as what they preferred.
Absolutely. And I think one of the really interesting things that we hear quite often when we're talking to dairy farmers about improving diversity within their grasslands is they're worried about the impact on milk. But you're not seeing that?
No, the majority of ours are probably on our young stock block, although we're introducing more and more to the cow paddocks then. But no, it's a behaviour select change or mindset, because you can't manage it like a ryegrass clover lay. Because if you manage like a ryegrass clover lay, you're going to end up with a ryegrass clover lay. You got to think of slightly longer rests, maybe not as tight a residual, but they can be very productive if managed in the right way.
Absolutely. Sorry, I got so interested. I forgot to put the microphone to my face. So brilliant. And so just moving on, I'll let you out the spotlight for a minute. I'll come back to you in a minute. David, so in terms of obviously you've been transitioning and doing these sort of things for quite a few years. What's been what was the light bulb moment for you, or what was the moment that made you think I might want to sort of change what we're doing? Was there one?
Yeah, absolutely. There were two light bulb moments, probably. The first light bulb moment of realising we'd got a problem was when we were just produced a very simple graph on where our variable costs had gone and where our yields had gone. And they were just drifting apart. The variable costs were just continuing to go up and the yields were almost static. So it was a realisation that we had a problem. And then the light bulb moment of what that problem could be was I went along to a RASE Enrich Your Soils workshop, which just totally blew my mind. stuff we'd never been taught, stuff we'd never known, stuff that wasn't talked about in the press, and going back to 2010, it was witchcraft in those days, which is becoming less so now. But so actually understanding that we'd got to try and do something with what was in the soil, and that there was biology was an interlinking factor between the physical and the chemical side of what soil was. So it was, that was really the light bulb moment.
That's fantastic, thank you. And in terms of what you're doing with cultivation and tillage and that sort of thing, what's your sort of, how do you establish what's happening there?
As soon as the combine's out of the field, we'll rush across with a straw rake. Slugs have been our absolute nemesis for a number of years. We're getting there now, but so straight across there with a straw rake to try and break up any slug nests that are in the bottom of the crop, and then that's left and sprayed off, drilled. We drill we used to have a cross slot drill for a number of years. We've now moved on to a horizon drill. So we drill with that. For a number of years, we were using DAP as a starter fertiliser just to try and to take away that cold turkey of going from tillage to no tillage, not mineralising nitrogen. So putting a bit of DAP down, but we knew from tests we'd done that was actually having a negative effect on the mycorrhizal fungi in the soil and a lot of the other biological life. So we went from 120 kilos down to 40 kilos, and then a combination of the price going up tremendously and our gut feeling that we'd sort of got far enough down the track that we could start to feed the biology. So now when we drill, we've got a liquid kit on the back of the drill. So in the seed furrow, we're putting molasses-based product just to try and feed the biology that's there. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, we've become an AHDB strategic farm. So we're now very happy that we can... we've got the facility to put a lot more science behind what we're doing. So a lot of the stuffs they're doing, the aim with the strategic farm over 6 years really is to come up with a bit of a map as to how we can progress safely down this journey. At the moment, we think we can probably save farmers 4 years if they come and talk to us and they're looking to do this. So, if we can have something a bit more robust, take some of the mystery out of it, have a bit more understanding, that's going to help a lot.
Absolutely fantastic, thank you. And Billy, in terms of the what you've been doing over the last 3 years, again, similar question. What have you had a light bulb moment or something that made you think about the system differently?
It's a bit of a classic light bulb moment, this, because basically read Gabe's brown book, Dirt to Soil, and in my mind that was it. There was just no other logical way of farming. Came home from uni, got dragged Dad kicking and screaming into this. Mum was a bit more easier to persuade. Started slowly. We introduced herbal lays, where beforehand we would have just grown straight ryegrass. So we immediately eliminated sort of any use of fertiliser there. So we mob grazed them and silaged them. And then sort of over the coming years, we started just with select groups of animals. Now we're sort of mob grazing everything. We're not applying any nitrogen to our grazing sort of platform. We're using sort of organic-based fertilisers with added humates on our silage ground, and on our arable ground now we're sort of growing wheat on sort of 60 kilos of nitrogen a hectare. So we've halved our nitrogen use basically in 3 years. I think the aim for the next 3 years is to half that again, and then we're sort of getting somewhere then. We've sort of started direct drilling now. So as soon as the combine's out of the field, we get the bales cleared, spread compost, get a sort of 6-week, 8-week catch crop in, harvest that summer sunlight that otherwise gets wasted, and then we go straight in and direct drill the next cereal into that. So we establish those catch crops with Vadestad Rapid, so we're getting a certain degree of tilth, which just helps disturb the soil a bit, just get chips and weeds, and get some catch crop growing nicely. And then we've grown some overwinter cover crops. Again, mob graze them with sheep. And then this year we've gone into that area that was cover cropped with a sort of legume silage lay, so Westerwolds, vetch, crimson clover. So that's been sort of grown with zero inputs. We cut that today. Yesterday, sorry, it should be getting baled today. The verdict's out on the yield. I might get an earful from Dad when I get home, but we'll see. That's sort of farming in a nutshell.
Perfect, thank you. So one of the things that we often talk about when we talk to our amazing finalists is the idea of obviously all of these changes that you're making in terms of are you doing any measurements? So are you looking at any soil analysis? Are you using a spade? What do you find to be the best sort of measure of success in terms of your system? Andrew, shall we start with you?
I don't know what the best measure is.
Just for you, not.
Well, yeah. Spade's a very good one. Is sort of seeing the difference from paddock, and also just I suppose your eyes, because we sort of see the difference in behaviour of livestock. Sometimes a feeling as well. So last summer we had a spring sown herbal lay right next door to basically a perennial ryegrass lay we cut for silage. So and they're both ready for graze at similar times. You watch the livestock, they graze the herbal lay first, we were moving them sort of twice a day, turned them through to this perennial ryegrass, sort of in terms of your grazing management, it was perfect, so right number of leaves, right height, it was sort of let them through the gate, pick the fence up, come back round, they were just all lined up, sort of basically grazing the hedge, so all bums out to the field, not touching this lovely grass we've grown for them at all, just wanting to graze what's in the hedge, whereas when they're in the field next door, there's access to the same hedge, just the other side, but would graze what you've actually grown. There's also the sort of the feeling you get from being in each field, sort of that herbal lay before it was grazed, you walk through it sort of just felt sort of full of life, there's insects and whatnot, and you walk through to just the monoculture ryegrass and it's just dead in a sense, there's just nothing going on, and there's almost sort of, it's a bit woo-woo, but it sort of is the feeling it gives you as well. I suppose for more in sort of empirical, we've done quite a lot of baseline soil analysis, done quite in-depth sort of yellow brick type base saturations, and we've also done like a handful of totals to know what's in the soil as well, so trying what can we access through improved soil biology. And one paddock we had 16 tonne of potash and 16 tonne of phosphate there, so from historic applications, so why the hell do we buy in more? Let's just get hold of that. And then from a carbon point of view, through First Milk and Agri-Carbon, we've recently cored the whole farm. So we've got a baseline carbon stock down to a metre where we could across the whole farm. So it'd be nice watching that going forward now.
Absolutely. And have you got good worms?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, we've done good work, we've got good worms. We've done poor work, we've got poor worms.
Absolutely, yeah. But do you see there as quite a useful indicator in terms of what's happening? Yeah,
because they're that higher level of the food chain in the soil, aren't they? So if they're there, theoretically, everything else in a part is going to be there as well. So yeah, where we've done better things, there are definitely more fatter worms.
Okay. I think it's really fascinating about watching cow behaviour, isn't it? And I think that, there's certainly something in there in terms of looking at how, not just what's going on below ground, but actually how is that grass or that forage being utilised, and watching what the animals are telling us. David, talk to us about measurement. What are you up to?
Yeah, we started off when we knew what we were doing was regenerative agriculture. What we were doing before, we had no idea what it was called. So by the time we got to 2015, we took 3 fields and GPS marked spots, and we took an in-depth soil analysis, which was measuring everything from fungi, bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, right the way through. And we've just been back this year and redone that. So those fields have been in the system now, obviously, since 2015. So we can see a difference in levels. The level of fungi is coming back compared to the level of bacteria. So we're bringing that balance back. Mycorrhizal fungi is starting to go up a little bit. So I think that's one way we're looking at the soil. We're just walking across fields, just that observation of not being able to put your foot down without treading on a worm midden. This sort of thing is just, not every field, but you can certainly see where they are, rather than just keep digging up the worms. Just observe what's going on the surface. But I think the other measurements we've looked at are the more environmental ones. So we have a guy come round and does a bird count across the farm all the time. We've now got 13 species of bird that are on the RSPB red list. So, we haven't seen all of those before. Some of them are there. And we're also doing a lot of pitfall traps. We've had trial plots for probably 8 years with the local water company and FWAG. And so putting pitfall traps down and observing what's in there in a cover crop situation compared to a stubble situation. And that's also being carried on now with NIAB and the HDB, where we're looking at them actually in crop to see that we're increasing the number of predators compared to the number of pests, which is what we've seen across the cover crop ones.
Perfect. And Billy, are you doing any measurement or holes or looking at anything like that in terms of how the system's changing?
Well, a lot of what Andrew said sort of resonates with us. I mean, the best measurement is your eye, really. You can tell when your farm is functioning well. Our animals are all happy. You can see, the ecosystem is sort of coming together as a whole. But we have recently been using an app called the Soil Mentor app. I think it's made by VitaCycle. So basically you mark locations in fields using GPS, and you return to them, I suppose, as frequently or as not frequently as you like, and just sort of monitor your soil going forwards. So we're sort of doing things like vest tests, rhizo sheath like assessments, worm counts. I was a bit dubious to begin with using the app because I thought, well, why do I need an app? I know I can see it, but it is very good to sort of relate back to, and for anyone sort of interested in monitoring how their farm is sort of moving forwards, definitely worth something looking into. What I wish we had done was baseline organic matter level tests across the farm, sort of when we started, so we could relate back to now and sort of see what progress we are making. We didn't do that, but that would also be a great place to start. But no, I think if you walk your farm, you're the best person to sort of tell how it's moving. And I can see our farm is pumping. It's really coming to life and starting to function, as I said, as a whole ecosystem, like it should be.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And I suppose, again, probably a question to all of you, but Willson, Andrew, you're going to be in the hot seat again here. In terms of, obviously you've all made these changes. If you were to sort of start again, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would do differently? Or is there any learnings that you think, I wish I'd have done it that way? Or has it sort of been, part of that process of understanding how your farm adapts?
So if you went back knowing what you know now, you'd make less mistakes. But then
they're all learning.
That's
they're
how
not
we've
mistakes.
learned. So we've made plenty of mistakes. So I don't say there's anything we wouldn't do. There's things we won't do again, probably. But let's say if we didn't try them out, we never know either. So it is trying as much as possible. But then I suppose I probably am guilty of probably trying too much at once as well. So then you just think about, well, which bit was it that actually made the difference? So I wouldn't say there's anything we wouldn't do differently. I suppose knowing what we know now, we've done things on a larger scale quicker because we did start very small. Like the first 2 herbalays we just did 2 half paddocks. And then we did a lot of reseeding the year after, but went safe and just put brown ryegrass, white clover in, we'll see how these turn out. But in hindsight, if we'd just gone for it then, we'd be in a strong position now. So no, I don't think there's anything we wouldn't do, but it is if you don't try it, you don't learn either. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's trying some of these things which allow you to understand how it works on your system, isn't it? David, anything that you would change or any learning events that have you do differently?
Probably about half of it, I think. I think we were completely the opposite. I think the situation we were in with the partners in the business, we weren't given a choice of trying something. We said, we either felt that this should work or it shouldn't. So we had to jump right in at the deep end. I think if we had our time again, we wouldn't have had a disc drill to start with. We would have had a tine drill, which would have helped with a little bit of the mineralisation of nitrogen, getting the crops away. And we would have tried it on a smaller acreage to do the whole lot in the first year, which history now tells us was an incredibly wet year. We had some pretty catastrophic results in the beginning. But, exactly, we learned from that, and we've moved on now, and we're extremely happy with where we are and how it's all going. So, yeah, as long as you treat each experience as a learning experience, you won't go far wrong.
Perfect. Billy, how about with you?
Yeah, like these two, we've had mistakes aplenty. The key is not to get too disheartened about them. You've got to have mistakes because otherwise you're not learning, obviously. We've gone very sort of quickly into it. I wouldn't regret what we've done. Obviously, like Andrew said again, there was things I definitely wouldn't do, or things that I would refine and do a bit differently. But you've got to have a go, and you'll learn along the way. As long as you don't bankrupt the farm, you're all right, really. Try and limit the damage. I'm pretty happy with the way we've approached it. It's definitely been sort of a crash course for us. Just sort of going off your own instinct and having a go. Just try and limit your loss. If you try and limit the damage you can do, but I wouldn't do it much differently to how we've done it.
Perfect. And we'll stick with you, and we'll go the other way this time. In terms of my question's gone completely out of my head then what I was going to ask you. In terms of what's next. So obviously, this is a continual journey, but what's the next sort of innovation or tweak or what you're going to look at in the next 12 months?
So as I mentioned earlier, like our main goal really is to just drive down our use of fossil fuels and artificial inputs. So year on year, we're going to keep reducing nitrogen use. That has to be done gradually. We've gone pretty hard on it this year. The combine hasn't been through the field, so I don't know, could be disastrous. Come back to me in a couple of months. But yeah, reducing our nitrogen use is sort of top of the list. Keeping our livestock going around the farm more regularly. I mentioned earlier we sort of have livestock going over pretty much all the farm sort of once in every 3 years. To get that down to sort of once in every 2 years or maybe even 1 year might be nice. But that's going to take a bit of sort of thinking. But yeah, I'd say that's about it.
David, what's next for you?
I think we seem to have sorted out our cover crops and what species and everything else. We got that pretty much where we think is correct at the moment. We do a bit of companion cropping in oilseed rape, so we're not using any insecticides on there. We seem to have got that pretty much right for 3 years now. Next year will probably be completely different. I think the interesting things we'll be looking at, and at the moment we're watching other people do it, so we'll let them make the mistakes and we'll copy them. Things like a living mulch, I think that's going to be something we need to start putting in place. I mean, unlike these other two guys, we have zero livestock on the farm at all. Our intention from day one of being on this journey was to be able to prove a system that worked for broadacre farmers without having the need to change everything that they do to accommodate livestock. I mean, there's no doubt that livestock move the system on much quicker, but I hate livestock. So I love the little furry ones and the little ones under the ground.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
we
no,
don't
yeah.
hate the below ground livestock.
No. I think the trying to prove a system that was very, very simple and very easy to look after we think we're getting there with that. So, living mulches and reducing the inputs even further to see how far we can get.
Absolutely. Andrew, how about you? What's the sort of next area of interest or what you'd like to try?
I suppose the overall area would be building sort of biological activity and humus building within our soil. I suppose going on that sort of three-pronged attack at the minute. We've sown sort of diverse summer cover crops, mainly annuals, in this spring, as it's sort of the mind of sort of almost being a soil reboot. And our clovers and herbs are in there already, so the plan is to graze them and go in with our perennial grasses this autumn. So hopefully then we've primed the soil this summer and they can boot on from there. Second one, what we're looking at is sort of compost, and where we compost can we sort of as a boosting sort of soil through inoculum, whether that's direct compost application or machine we're using to reduce our nitrogen use is also ideally built to apply compost extracts as well. So can we utilise that in another way from that point of view? And the third one then is trying to introduce a more long, like sort of not taller grass graze, I don't really like that term, but sort of longer rest periods for the dairy herd, as they're quite responsive to grass quality in a sense. As we've had some successes and some poor results in trying different things. We've learned quite a bit on that this spring, so next spring try something a bit different and keep building on that. We sort of, young stock wise, is sort of, we feel we're almost there with what's working there, but it doesn't replicate to cows in terms of milk production, and at the end of the day we've got to look after the bottom line as well. So I think it's doable. We're just still learning how it fits to our context.
Perfect. And then last question for me. So anybody in the audience that wants to ask our soil farmers anything, do get your questions ready. And I'll come back to you, Andrew, and we'll come back this way. Are you positive about the future and optimistic?
Generally, yes. The way we're trying to build our system is to be less reliant on external inputs. So as they go up, then hopefully it won't affect us so greatly. We're finding sort of adhering to sort of additional pressures in terms of labour, sourcing labour, buying people who want to work within dairy. I mean, we're hoping trying to build something that's enjoyable to work in, and if anybody is looking for a job in dairy, we're looking for somebody at the minute. Come and talk to us if you are. But yeah, generally sort of positive. I think the traction's building in sort of this sort of space. It's just how can we get that value back out of the marketplace for doing that something. But at the moment it's seen a bit different, but if we can get value from the marketplace, well, the market will follow and it'll no longer be seen as something a bit different, and it'll develop more towards mainstream.
Perfect. David, positive? Optimistic?
100% positive. I think it's an extremely exciting time to be in farm, and certainly I've had more fun in the last 10 years than I had in the previous 10. So the learning curve is massive. A do like this is an absolute must to come and have a walk around and try and understand what we're trying to do. I think we're certainly not looking to change anything massively, but to hone what we're doing at the moment to reduce inputs even further is very exciting.
Yeah, exciting times ahead. And Billy, are you positive and optimistic?
Yeah, hugely optimistic. There's so many opportunities for people farming with this sort of mindset, and I think we're only just scratching the surface. As the next couple of years go on, the world of farming is going to be put on its head, and these methods are going to be paramount to maintaining a profitable farming system. There's a lot of people my age, sort of the younger generation, young farmers now, who are interested in this. I've seen so many of my ex-uni mates here. Well, still my mates, my ex. You know what I mean. So to see sort of the younger generation at events like this is definitely gives you a good feeling about what we're heading to in the future.
Cracking. So I'm going to shut up at this point and open the floor for anybody that might have questions to any of our fantastic panellists here. So I'm reliably informed we have a roving mic. We do. So if you have a question, if you'd like to wave your hand and make yourself known. So should we start over here? And then we'll come over to you. And if you want to, if it's to one of our finalists or to everybody, just, let us know.
Yes. So my first question, so I'm Eve from Safe Soil Movement. So we're very much about soil. And so my first question to Billy, have you proven your dad wrong?
I've managed to make him more comfortable with what we're doing. I think it was the first and sort of second year we were doing it where he was really quite nervous about everything. But you just got to have faith, and you just got to stick to your guns and go for it. And the results are clear to see. He's seen them. He's reluctant to admit that it's working well, but I know he's given me a lot more freedom sort of to do things on the farm now. So, he's obviously got confidence in what we're doing and how we're moving forward.
Yes, and the second question is to all of you. So is there a blueprint for farmers that's sort of thinking about it but not confident enough? Like if they would do 1, 2, 3, something, and it will work, it will, or at least will take them the right way, the right direction?
I would say absolutely don't go into it with sort of a set plan. Have a vague plan, but plans change. I mean, the amount of times our plans have changed over the past year is just ridiculous. I think you just need to get out there, talk to people, use the resources that are out there, sort of get a bit of knowledge and literally just have a crack. Start small if you're a bit nervous about it, and then, if that works, scale it up and go from there.
Yeah, I think I would agree with everything you said. It really is a case of talking to people. That, as a whole, the regen farmers that I know are totally open, will tell you exactly as it is and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And I think the only caveat I'd put on that is it's very much if you have a set of things that you want to put in place to move down the track of regen, it will vary very much on what part of the country you're in, what sort of soil type you're on. But what doesn't change is the direction you're going in. How you get there might alter a little bit. So I could come up with an absolute bomb-proof blueprint for what works on our particular farm. You take it halfway up the country, and that would be completely the wrong thing to do. So it's got to be tempered by geography as well as soil type and everything else. But the other thing I'd say is read plenty of books. Yeah, the books that are available on regen farming, there's getting 1 or 2 from this country, most of them from America. But read them, get the background, and then you'll understand why you're trying to do this and the direction you're trying to go in.
Yeah, I agree. Add more to that in that, I don't think we need blueprints or recipes because everybody's context is going to be that much different. I think it's more sort of, there's principles that apply to across it all, sort of minimising disturbance and living roots at all times, and those kind of things is the standard 5 that people talked about, but the 6th one that sort of Gabe Brown has talked about is within your own context, so it's specific to each farm, but sort of you can try and marry those principles into your system as best you can, then hopefully that is going to be a path towards progress as well.
Cracking. I think it's that flexibility, isn't that? And that ability to look in your own context is really important. I saw another hand up over here, and then if anybody else is thinking of a question, do let us know. Perfect.
So my question's for David. My name's Meg and I'm from Wales. So you spoke about that sort of first disastrous year of being fully committed to regen. What was the sort of driver or the factors which influenced you to keep going and persevere rather than sort of chucking the towel and chalk it up to a bad mistake?
Good question. I think just to put a little bit of background to this, I'm a farm manager. I work for 4 partners within this business, 2 husband and wife teams, and 3 of those people are well into their 80s. So they're very much believing that what we're doing is the right thing, doing the right thing for growing a crop and producing more nutritious food, but also in actually, with the succession that's planned through the farms, it's adding improving the asset value in through time as well. So self-belief, I think we certainly struggled to come to terms with what had happened, but as we've heard from everybody, the mistakes are the things that you actually learn by, and it was our naivety at the time, as well as the fact that we hadn't got the choice to go back to the way we were doing it, that pushed us down that route. So it would have been another slab of money to buy ourselves out of it, which luckily we managed to convince them wasn't an option. So, and we've definitely learned and become stronger from that. Yeah.
Good stuff. I think there's another question just here.
Hello. Hi. Firstly, I want to say thank you to our top 3 soil farmers for making a journey that we can all learn from. But my question is, the way that you farm now, does it make you feel more resilient to ever-changing government policy, like specifically you, Andrew, total MVZs in Wales? Do you feel more resilient to policy?
To an extent. The issue perhaps have with it is the biggest limiting factor MVZ is going to have to us is a stock rate limit with the 170N. That I can envisage a point where we could actually grow enough forage without chemical inputs to maintain more than the stocking rate allowed by 170 kilos of N. So is the question, what do you do at that point? Because if you're in an N use situation, you just reduce your N use. But if you've already reduced your N use, what do we do next? I'm not a fan of the MVZ legislation. I agree something needed to be done because there's farms abusing the system and pollution is happening. But it's just some points it's a sledgehammer to crack a nut in certain systems. I feel MVZ is focusing very much on organic N. New Zealand have gone on a 190 chemical N cap, and a lot of them have adjusted and maintained production, so it's sort of shown how a lot of N was being wasted to the system. So from that point of view, definitely sort of resilience. On the MVZ point in Wales, I think it's a bit of a muddle anyway, so we've got to work within it. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do from a stocking rate point of view, but I can't really give a clear answer than that, sorry.
That's absolutely fine. Any other questions? Oh, yeah. Lee?
Thanks. Yeah, just a question to all 3. What is your thoughts on the relationship of healthy soil and then healthy food and healthy people?
I think there's no doubt that the nutrient density of food over the past 50 years has plummeted. Soil is the base of life and in turn the base of sort of food production. If crops aren't being fed through natural healthy soil processes, they're being supplemented with nasty inputs. I think the health of the soil is critical to achieve a healthy population. Without a healthy soil, it's going to make having a healthy population a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely absolutely linked. In books I've read from just after the Second World War, it was noted then, trying to think of the name of the book, Folly of the Ploughman, talk about the fact that if you have healthy soil, you have healthy food, you have healthy people. So through the HDB and NIAB, one of the things that we're trying to prove at the end of our 6 years is that we have a more nutrient-dense product that we're producing in the way we're going than somebody who's farming conventionally. There's a few issues about knowing if we're looking at nutrient density, what nutrients are we actually looking at? They're not the elements that we look at when we're looking at whether we're using enough phosphate, potash, and all that sort of stuff. We're looking at something else. And I've then been informed that are slightly more difficult than that, because even if we've got that, we've got to make sure that that's actually accessible by a human body. So it's not just a case of looking at a quantity of something; it's how much is actually available to the human body. But there's meters out there in America where you can test the nutrient density, and they're finding nutrient densities varying 15 to 1. So one good carrot takes 15 bad carrots to produce the same nutrition. So even if we can only get part way down that road, we've got to be able to prove something.
Yeah, well, we see it already in terms of soil health to animal health improvements we sort of see in animal health the last 3 years. That can only roll on to the produce we sell. As was alluded to earlier, is how do we extract that value from the marketplace? How do you differentiate? So, as you, the person who markets my milk, I'll throw the question back to you. How do we differentiate?
Good stuff. So I think we're coming to the end. So I'm going to call a halt to the questions there. I know the bar is calling for a lot of us, and I think just the sort of the depth of knowledge, the breadth of questions, and the absolutely amazingly way that you've all answered those questions is absolutely fantastic. So thank you ever so much. So I would just like to finish off by just doing a couple of thank yous. So thank you ever so much again to the sponsors of our competition. So to Hutchinson's and to Cotswold Seeds, we really, really appreciate the ability. We wouldn't be able to put the competition on without you. To our colleagues at Innovation for Agriculture, again, who do a fantastic job in terms of helping us run and support the competition. To the team at FCT, especially Emma, who has done all of the donkey work this year and has done an absolutely fantastic job. But also just to our amazing soil farmers. And it's going to be absolutely brilliant to hopefully see a lot of you at the farm walks. We've just scratched the surface this evening in some of the complexity and the amazing practices that are happening on these farms. Our farm walks will be happening over the next few weeks, so please do keep an eye on the website and do come along. We'd love to see you where we can dig deeper and have lots more of these conversations. So do keep in touch. Do work out when the farm walk's going to be. And if we could just, again, really thank and congratulate our soil farmer winners this year and our shortlisted farmers. Just congratulations. Well done.